Murders at Karlov Manor introduced us to the mechanic collect evidence, is a thematic way to say you're kicking something. So to collect evidence, exile any number of cards from your graveyard with total mana value N or greater. So let's take Vitu-Ghazi Inspector as our example. It says as an additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect evidence 6. It has reach, and when it enters the battlefield, if evidence was collected, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and you gain 2 life. If you collect evidence, it does the extra thing at the bottom of the card. If you don't, this is just a 1/3 elf detective with reach. So what does collecting evidence look like? It seems simple, but it does have its complexities. Vitu-Ghazi Inspector wants you to collect evidence 6. This means we've got cards with total mana value 6 or greater in our graveyard. We can exile them to get the bonus. This does not have to be one card with CMC 6. It can be any number that equals 6 or greater. So we could exile a mana value 3 and a mana value 4 card from there, and it still works. Even though you're exiling 7 mana value, you're reaching the threshold of what the card wanted. But there's an important distinction if you do not reach the threshold of mana value specified on the card. If you can't exile enough cards to meet or exceed the required mana value, you cannot choose to collect evidence at all. If you don't have the resources, you can't get the bonus. So what if I do have enough in my graveyard and an opponent tries to exile one of those cards while I'm collecting evidence? Well, this is extremely important. Once you've announced that you're casting a spell, players cannot take actions until you've finished doing so. Notably, opponents cannot try to remove cards from your graveyard to stop you from collecting evidence. Collecting evidence is part of the casting cost. You have to tell other players whether or not you're paying that cost as you're casting the spell. Just as you'd say, I'm kicking Baloth Gorger to get the extra +1/+1 counters, you'd say, I'm collecting evidence for a Crime Stopper sprite to put a stun counter on that creature. I hope that all makes sense. To recap, to collect evidence N means to exile any number of cards from your graveyard with total mana value N or greater. If a player is given the choice to collect evidence but is unable to exile cards with total mana value N or greater from their graveyard, usually because there aren't enough cards to do so, they can't choose to collect any evidence. There are so many new keywords coming out that it's hard to keep track of, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any. Thank you to my good friend and patron Jason for continually pushing me to make these videos. He's always calling me about a rule or what I'm doing, so I'm really glad I can help a little bit with these videos. Not that I don't want him to call me, but it just helps when it's a little quicker. Sometimes I'm not available. Whatever. Love you, Jason. Thank you so much to my other Patreon subscribers as well, and make sure you check out that Patreon page to support the channel. Another way to support the channel is by purchasing all your cards through that TCGplayer affiliate link in the description below. Thank you once again, and I'll catch you next week for your weekly dose of magic.